Welcome back to Dyknow's Tech Coach Corner YouTube series. I'm Tiara Lustig, your host, and today I am joined by Sean Coffron to talk about personalized learning, what it means, how you can really personalize learning in your school. And he's a tech coach, so this is all from the tech coach perspective, as well as using educational technology to really support that personalized learning, whether you're teaching remote, hybrid, or maybe if you're back in the classroom already. Before we jump into the episode, just want to remind everyone to subscribe to Dyknow's YouTube channel so that you never miss anything that we're posting, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels. This will also be the last Tech Coach Corner episode of 2020, so thank you everyone who has been with us since the beginning. We appreciate you tuning in with us. We hope you've learned a ton during 2020, despite how different learning has been this year with virtual and hybrid learning. We will be back in 2021 after the holidays with some more great content. And until then, have a wonderful, safe holiday season. And we hope to see you in 2021. Let's jump into our conversation with Sean. Welcome back to Tech Coach Corner, everyone. I'm Tiara Lustig, your host, and today I'm joined again by Sean Coffron. Sean, do you want to give a brief introduction to yourself before we get started?
Sure. I'm an educator with Manassas City Public Schools in Manassas, Virginia. I've served in the classroom as an administrator, and now I'm serving as a technology coach at our middle school.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you back. We've worked with you many times before. You have great expertise, so we're excited to learn more with you today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about personalized learning. I think this topic has really become important during remote learning and will gain a lot more traction as well going back to the classroom. Would you mind talking a little bit about what personalized learning is, how it's changed with the onset of remote learning, and then any strategies or tactics that your school has put in place to really personalize the remote learning experience?
Sure. So as educators, we're always trying to help students learn on their own terms and in the best way possible. And I think in the 80s and 90s, it was all more about student-centered and project-based. And then with the turn of the century, we kind of saw a rise of differentiated instruction. And a lot of those terms that I mentioned before have different meanings because we really focused on differentiating our instruction for different groups of students or students with different needs. Then as we found ourselves moving further into the 21st century, we found that differentiation was only part of the picture. It was really more about helping students to stay engaged and stay motivated and not only learn in best ways that suited them, but also in best environments that would help them to learn and grow on their own terms. And so we find ourselves in a situation where now we're personalizing learning to a group of one. So instead of having 30 students in a class where we might have 3 or 4 groups of students with different needs, we find ourselves striving to have every student feel that they are personally being addressed and their learning needs are personally being met. Excitingly enough, technology has kind of risen to the occasion. And so what I have found is we can use instructional technology and instructional technology resources to further personalize learning in ways that weren't possible before. I remember in classrooms where for differentiation or for cooperative learning or cooperative learning groups, we would do things such as set up different note cards where we had different activities or different assignments, or we'd do jigsaws or different types of choice boards where students would choose which activities or which assessments would best suit their needs. That worked very well if you had 3 or 4 lessons or 3 or 4 differentiations within a lesson to plan for. But in personalized learning, the goal is for every student to have their own decisions to make regarding their instruction. And that becomes much more difficult without the assistance of technology. So what I find is personalized learning is possible, but it requires a change of thinking. It requires a change of thinking from a more traditional model where a teacher has a learning activity or some sort of lesson and they impart knowledge on the student, to rather the teacher devises an environment or a learning session where students are consistently exploring and learning. And the teacher provides the guidance, of course, and there's still a lesson and there's still specific objectives to be met, but they can be done in a more inclusive environment or in a more student-centered environment where the students engage in activities that lend themselves more toward student direction. And then the teacher finds themselves in a very different role, a role of facilitator, rather than one of direct instruction. Not that direct instruction should not be a part of the lesson. In fact, direct instruction is a very important part of the lesson. But when it comes times for students to respond to that stimulus, when it comes times for students to integrate that new knowledge into their previous understandings, it's important that we provide an environment where students are able to do that. And with the help of instructional technology, that can be possible. At our school, we have been focusing on remote learning and focusing on trying to help students to stay safe in our current pandemic quarantine environment. And so one of the things that's important to us is to provide the same level of instruction outside of the classroom in this thing we call remote learning. We do use a learning management system. We use Schoology, and there are many different ways that you can personalize learning using Schoology, such as creating user groups within your classes, creating learning items or assessments that allow students to really explore the content in stations or in settings where they get a choice about how they're going to do certain activities or what resources they're going to use. For example, we might have 3 or 4 resources that explore basic skills or allow students to understand more about the previous information if they find themselves in need of some academic intervention. And we might have some enrichment resources as well. The nice thing about it is in both cases, those resources can be integrated into our learning management system, or they can be integrated into our presentation software directly. We tend to use interactive student presentation software such as Nearpod, which allows us, Pear Deck, by the way, is the other company that has a similar product. And what we can do is we can build lessons that have differentiated formative assessment built into the lesson, and then use that data to further help students to personalize their instruction in the activity time, where we've already delivered the instruction and now students have an opportunity to incorporate that instruction into their prior understanding.
I love that kind of outline of it, using the teacher as a facilitator and then grouping students based on learning style, implementing LMS and different technology, and then using data to back that up. I think it's so important to constantly reevaluate and evaluate how personalized learning initiatives are performing, because you never truly know if personalization is working until you evaluate and look at that data. So thank you for laying that out. I think that's a really great structure that other tech coaches, teachers out there can follow to implement personalized learning. Sean, we will definitely put all of your contact information, your Twitter handle and everything in description so that people can go and connect with you there. But thank you so much for being with us today to talk about personalized learning.
Thanks for the time.